The House will come to order. Members, please take their seats. Sergeant at Arms.
The House is now in session. All persons not entitled to privileges of the floor, please retire to the gallery.
The members will rise and be led in prayer by the Reverend Dr. Brent Melton, Rector, All Saints Episcopal Church in Richmond, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, led by the delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we ask you to send your blessing upon all leaders across your land. We pray especially for those here to help shape the laws of Virginia, to give these leaders courage, wisdom, and foresight to provide for the needs of all our people, and to fulfill our obligations to serve all the communities of the Commonwealth. We ask you to send your blessing. Help these leaders to lean into conversations that are most uncomfortable. Help us all to acknowledge that our greatest growth comes out of the toughest conversations that we engage in together. Remind us of the strength of turning to you to guide our tongues and to prevent our hearts from hardening as we engage in the important and passionate discussions shared in this space. Gracious God, send down upon those who hold office in this Commonwealth the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Back in that area. Yeah, that neck of the woods.
The members will answer the roll call by indicating their presence on the electronic voting board. The clerk will close the roll.
Madam Speaker, a quorum is present.
Pursuant to House Rule 3, I have examined and approved the journal for the House of Delegates for Monday, March 2nd, 2020. Motions and resolutions under Rule 39 pursuant to the provisions of Rule 40 are now in order. The clerk shall announce the first morning hour order of business, including any clerk's announcements and communications.
First morning hour order of business. Madam Speaker, the Senate has insisted on its amendments and requested committees of conference on the following legislation: House Bill 2, House Bill 42, House Bill 600, House Bill 799, House Bill 1209, House Bill 1519, House Bill 1725.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House accede to the request of the Senate for committees of conference on the previously reported legislation.
Shall the motion by Delegate Herring be adopted? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion is adopted.
Madam Speaker, the Senate has rejected the House amendments to the following legislation: Senate Bill 70, Senate Bill 71, Senate Bill 134, Senate Bill 142, Senate Bill 203, Senate Bill 225, Senate Bill 393, Senate Bill 710, Senate Bill 763, Senate Bill 793, Senate Bill 838, Senate Bill 939.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House insist on its amendments and request a committees of conference on the previously reported legislation.
Shall the motion by Delegate Herring be adopted? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the motion is adopted.
Madam Speaker, House Resolution Number 140 is on its second reading. And I'll read the entire resolution. House Resolution 140, amending and readopting Rule 81 of the Rules of the House of Delegates pertaining to the voting requirement to discharge a committee from the consideration of a resolution. Resolved by the House of Delegates that Rule 81 of the Rules of the House of Delegates is amended and readopted as follows. Roman 5, Conduct of Business, Manual and Rules. Rule 81. The rules of the House shall be adopted in even-numbered years by a majority vote of members elected and shall remain in effect for 2 years coinciding with the terms of members. The rules may be suspended by a vote of 2/3 of the members elected to be ascertained by an actual division of the House except as prohibited by the Constitution, provided that a motion to discharge a committee from the consideration of a bill, insert, or resolution shall require the majority of those voting, which shall include 2/5 of the members elected to the House, the vote thereon to be taken by yeas and nays and recorded in the journal, and provided further that a motion to dispense with the printing and reading of a bill or its printing on the calendar or either shall not be entertained except as provided by the Constitution. A proposition to change a rule of the House shall be submitted in writing and forthwith printed. In its printed form, it shall lie upon the Speaker's table for 5 days and be read by the House during the morning hour of each day during that time. At the expiration of 5 days, it shall be ready for consideration and may be adopted or rejected by a majority vote of the members elected, provided that as to all resolutions or bills which involve an appropriation or expenditure of money by the Commonwealth or which may create a charge upon the Treasury, the rule of the House shall not be changed or suspended save by a vote of 2/3 of the members present to be ascertained by an actual division of the House. Upon a motion to suspend a rule, the mover shall be allowed 2 minutes to state the reasons for his motion, and one member opposed to the motion shall be allowed a like time to object. This concludes House Resolution 140's second reading. Madam Speaker, that completes the announcements from the clerk's office, and the Speaker requests members to use their request to speak buttons to be recognized.
The delegate from Enrico, Delegate Willett.
Madam Speaker, I rise for an introduction.
Delegate Willett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today's prayer was delivered by Reverend Dr. Brent Milton of All Saints Episcopal Church, my church here in Henrico. It's actually located less than a half mile from my home, so I have no excuse for not going to church. Reverend Milton was born and raised in Wilmington, North Carolina. He has 2 young boys, John David and Harrison, whom he loves playing basketball and building Legos with. He enjoys being outdoors, whether on a golf course or anywhere in the mountains or on the ocean. And a very cool fact, Brent is also a certified snow instructor. Brent graduated from the College of Charleston with a BS degree in elementary education. 2002, he entered the School of Theology at the University of the South in Sewanee and earned a master's in divinity. Graduated again from the University of the South to earn his doctorate of ministry in preaching in May of 2016. Reverend Melton has served as assistant rector at St. John's Church in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and is rector of Christ Church in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. In the summer of 2013, Brent became enlightened and moved to Virginia, where he became the rector of All Saints Episcopal in Henrico. Brent wears many hats at All Saints. As the rector, he enjoys looking at the big picture as well as the integral parts of the ministry. His vision for All Saints is for it to be a true place of formation, a place to help those discern and share their God-given gifts. He is passionate about congregational development, preaching, and outreach initiatives. I ask that we give Dr. Melton, Reverend Melton, a warm house welcome.
Welcome, Reverend Melton. Thank you so much for what you do for the community, and we're thrilled that you're here today and appreciate your inspiring words. Thank you. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a request to take the center aisle, and I invite all of the Loudoun County delegation to join me.
All those joining Delegate Delaney shall take the center aisle.
Right here in the middle. All right, come on in, boys. All right. All right. Madam Speaker,
Delegate
members
Delaney.
of the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the House, behind me and with us stand 13 young men who made up the 2019 Loudoun South Little League team, who went to, they were the first Virginian team in 25 years to represent the Commonwealth in the Little League World Series. They were just one of the 16 teams in the world to reach this prestigious tournament. Through their hard work, perseverance, and sportsmanship, they clinched significant victories over some of the country's best teams, and in doing so, they made the Loudoun community so proud. I ask that everyone join me in commending them for their once-in-a-generation achievement. Congratulations.
Wow, we are so proud of you all. Congratulations on this tremendous achievement. Thanks for joining us here today. I know it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of practice for you all to get where you have been already at such a young age. I believe the head coach, Alan Bowden, is also here with us today. And there he is. Congratulations, and again, thanks for your hard work and making us proud.
This guy played baseball. He played baseball too in college.
Who's the captain?
The delegate from Chesterfield, Delegate Coiner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise for a motion and an introduction.
Delegate Coiner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would move that House Joint Resolution 441 on page 32 be passed by until tomorrow.
All those in favor of HJR 441 on page 32 being passed by until tomorrow shall say aye. Those opposed, HJR 441 is passed by till tomorrow. Delegate Coiner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is my privilege to recognize Gail Asuncion.
Delegate Coiner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Gail Asuncion, I believe, is in the gallery with us today. I am proud to have this young emerging leader who is from the 62nd District with us. He is a member of the inaugural class of students at Cristo Rey School, a network of schools across the country based on a corporate work-study program. He is currently doing his work-study at Hutton Andrews Kurth. Gail enjoys playing soccer, would like to be either an engineer or architect, made the honor roll list this past quarter, and enjoys listening to music on YouTube. If you would please join me in giving Gail a warm welcome.
Welcome. We're thrilled to have you here today. Hope you enjoy your day on Capitol Square. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Plum.
Madam Speaker, I rise for an introduction.
Delegate Plum, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, members of the House, this is Young People's Day, and I'm going to introduce to you an extraordinary young person who I want you to think about, also the young people in your district who do exceptional things. If Mateo Lambert would stand, and Mateo, you can barely see above the lever, there's Mateo. He's a fourth grader in Fairfax County, a resident of Delegate Keem's district, but he has had an extraordinary period of time this past year. He represents young people who have a philosophy that kids support other kids and that we can gain strength from each other. He began in 2019 with the goal of running 100 kilometers and raising $5,000 to help kids with cancer. At the end of 2019, Mateo had completed 36 races in 15 states and 2 countries, totaling 125 miles. The interesting thing about his runs is that he always has a sponsor who's a kid in hospital undergoing lengthy treatment. He wears a cape with that child's picture on it, and all the winnings that he gathers from those runs goes to programs that help children who are in hospitals for long periods of time. He had raised this summer $65,000. But there's more. He's the youngest person to ever give a TED Talk without notes. He's currently writing a book and hopes to inspire more youth to help others as he does. So how can he run so often and run so far? The answer is he gains his strength, as he explains it, from the children he's representing. Those children who face more extraordinary challenges than we ever faced in simply running a race. I'll give you one little incident that he had when he was in Chicago at the baseball game, and he met with Anthony Rizzo, a name you're familiar with, who had survived Hodgkin's lymphoma when he was age 18. Just as Mateo does, Rizzo supports kids with cancer now. Mateo met him on July 19, 2019, and asked Anthony to hit a moonshot for kids with cancer. Anthony said he would, and he hit a game-winning Grand Slam home run, and later then donated $5,000 to Mateo's efforts. This is an extraordinary young man, and again, representative of people throughout our community who do extraordinary things. So again, let's show our thanks and appreciation. Mateo, congratulations.
Wow, Mateo, we are so incredibly proud of you. You are really, take our breath away. You're the inspiration to all of us and to so many, and to think what you've accomplished and what you've done and what you do every single day at such a young age. You really are inspiring to so many, and you've made such a difference and saved so many lives in the process. You're impressive. Thank you for honoring us today with your presence, and thank you for what you do every day. We're so proud of you. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Bulova.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Rise for an announcement.
Delegate Bulova, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House. On behalf of myself and Delegate Wilt and Delegate Blocks, I'm very pleased to announce the arrival of the 2019 annual report of the Chesapeake Bay Commission, where you'll find all sorts of great candid shots of the three aforementioned people. As many of you know, the Chesapeake Bay Commission is a unique tri-state body composed of legislators from Virginia and Pennsylvania and Maryland, with the goal of discussing our mutual goal of restoring our beautiful Chesapeake Bay. And the commission was put together out of a recognition that we can't rely just on the federal government to be able to restore the bay. In fact, that leadership has to be state-driven, has to be bipartisan, and it has to be consensus-based. 2019 was actually a great year for the Chesapeake Bay Commission and also for the Chesapeake Bay, especially with respect to our efforts to pursue federal funding. And that's really been rewarded. And so this year, the EPA's Chesapeake Bay program was increased by $12 million. The Chesapeake Gateways program was increased by $1 million. And the Army Corps of Engineers oyster restoration work was restored to the $5 million level. What I'm really excited about, Madam Speaker, is that our efforts are really paying off. And over the next 5 years, we have a chance, if we make the investments necessary, to actually reach our targets for restoring the Chesapeake Bay. And that is a legacy that we can be proud to leave to our children and our children's children. So, Madam Speaker, I hope that everybody will take a chance to look at the annual report. This has been delivered to all of your offices out here today. We have a lot to be proud of, and I want to thank everybody here who has been part of restoring one of our fantastic natural treasures. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Simons.
Madam Speaker, I rise for an introduction.
Delegate Simons, you have the floor.
We are pleased to have with us today 4th, 5th, and 6th graders from Hampton Roads International Montessori School. If they could please stand. They are here learning about their state government, and I have been really impressed because I've actually seen them at climate action rallies in Newport News. So I know they care about environmental issues, so I'm going to give you guys some homework. This body is right now considering a bill called the Virginia Clean Economy Act. So I would like you guys to have a look at that and then let me know what you think of that bill, okay? But I really appreciate you being here, and welcome to the House.
Welcome to the Hampton Roads International Montessori School students. Enjoy your day here today, and we'll follow up with Delegate Simons and see how you do in your homework assignment. The delegate from Fairfax County, Delegate Corey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for an introduction.
Delegate Corey, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Speaker and members of the House, in the gallery today are representatives from the Virginia Food Industry Association. Members of the Virginia Food Industry Association employ more than 55,000 Virginians at more than 530 retail grocery stores across the Commonwealth. You might remember, I hope you remember, my admonishing all of you to bring food to the food drive for Feed More. And I told you that if I reached my goal, the grocers had said that they would be willing to match that donation. So I am proud to announce today that we reached our goal of 500 pounds. And this morning I held a press conference along with the FOIA to announce to the world that we had done that and that the grocers were contributing $10,000 as well. And I was honored that the governor attended press conference, as did Mayor LeVar Stoney, and representatives from Feed More and from the Virginia Food Industry Association. So I am proud to introduce members of the Virginia Food Industry Association. And if you're in the gallery, please stand, and I ask the House to give them a warm welcome.
Welcome to the representatives from the Virginia Food Industry Association. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for participating and for making a difference in the community. Enjoy your day today. The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a motion.
Delegate Rome, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May HJR 459 be pulled out of the block, please? Then I'll have a second motion.
Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that HJ 459 be moved to tomorrow's calendar for vote and presentation as the introduction.
All those in favor of Delegate Rome's motion for HJR 459 to go by for the day shall say aye. Aye. All those opposed, HJR 459 goes by for the day. The delegate from Chesterfield, Delegate Robinson.
Madam Speaker, I rise for a request.
Delegate Robinson, you have the floor.
I would like to ask if House Resolution 151 on page 39 go by until Thursday.
Did you want to speak to that or no? That's okay.
I just want to see if I can get some patrons on it.
Great. All those in favor of Delegate Robinson's motion for H.R. 151 on page 39 to go by until Thursday shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed, H.R. 151 goes by until Thursday. Pursuant to House Rule 30, the Journal shall reflect that the following members are away on pressing personal business and are granted leave from today's session. Delegates Carol Foy, Carter, and Converse Fowler. The clerk will, the delegate from Pennsylvania, Delegate Adams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a request.
Delegate Adams, you have the floor.
Yes, I move that that the resolutions HJR 377 and HJR 378 on page 27 be taken by for the day.
All those in favor of Delegate Adams' motion for HJR 377 and HJR 378 to go by for the day shall say aye. Those opposed, HJR 377 and HJR 378 by for the day. The clerk will please announce the next order of business.
Second morning hour order of business. The next order of business is the announcement of member requests for legislation to move from the uncontested to regular calendar. There are no such requests.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Helmer.
Madam Speaker, I rise for a request.
Delegate Helmer, you have the floor.
Could SB 994 please move to the regular calendar? SB 994. On page...
SB 994 on page 4 of the calendar will go by. We'll move to the regular calendar.
The clerk shall announce the next order of business.
Third morning hour order of business. The next order of business is the announcement of requests by members for legislation to go by for the day and the subsequent motion by the majority leader. Page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill 731, and page 5 of the calendar, Senate Bill 851.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
Madam Speaker, I move that the legislation as announced by the clerk go by for the day.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring, moves that the legislation as just announced by the clerk go by for the day. As many as favor that motion shall say aye. Those opposed, the motion is agreed to. The clerk will announce the next order of business.
Fourth morning hour order of business. The next order of business is requests by members for points of personal privilege, and the speaker requests that you use your request to speak buttons.
The delegate from Norfolk, Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the House. After last night's Privileges and Elections Committee hearing, I rise today to speak on the redistricting amendment that is making its way through the process. I have to date kept quiet on this issue because I had hoped that the better angels of the day would prevail. And given that seems pretty dubious at this point, I find myself compelled to speak as we are at a crossroads that could potentially alter this legislature and our state for decades to come. But let's start with how we got here. I feel strongly that an examination of history is helpful in informing us of our current state of affairs, as to my knowledge, nobody has addressed these points on the House floor to date. And if you go back and check the record, you'll see that the caucus on the other side of the aisle had 2 decennial attempts to enact independent, nonpartisan redistricting proposals to govern this process. And yet over the course of 20 years in power, they repeatedly shot down not only Democratic proposals, but also bipartisan recommendations. By way of one example, during the 2017 session, a P&E subcommittee that had 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats, including 4 in this body still, Delegates Adams of Pennsylvania, Delegate Cole, Delegate Fowler, and Delegate Ranson, raised their hands and killed 3 anti-gerrymandering provisions on a party-line vote. Fast forward to the 2019 session, and none other than Delegate Cole of Spotsylvania proposes a constitutional amendment that is billed as nonpartisan redistricting reform. And now we are meant to believe that this group of people who had for 20 years in power rejected this very concept suddenly saw the light and felt compelled to flip their long-held views on redistricting and gerrymandering overnight. I say to you, that is politics. While minds may have indeed changed in the short span of time, in reality, I suspect that it was more of a threat of a Democratic takeover in the wake of the 2017 elections, and they thought that a Democratic majority might endure for a decade or two that made this sudden priority among those who had rejected the very concept for years. These suspicions were confirmed last year when all but one member of the Republican caucus voted for Delegate Cole's amendment. It was after that red flag of that vote that I truly realized how scared the Republican caucus was about losing control in advance of the 2021 redistricting process. That hypocritical farce marched on a few weeks back when the minority leader spoke about the supposed efficacy of the amendment and how crucial it was for Virginia, a claim that drew laughter on the floor from myself and my seatmate Delegate Bourne. The delegate from Shenandoah has been here since the 2006 session, and I'm almost positive that after a thorough review of his voting record, this amendment was the first time in his tenure that he supported any type of reform in this process. To the Republican caucus's credit, you have played your part masterfully. But color me skeptical on the Republican commitment to fairness, especially after they rejected Delegate Price's redistricting amendments on a party line vote, no less. As my parents and grandparents say, I might have been born at night, but I was not born last night. Even setting aside this naked partisan flip by those across the aisle, an objective examination of the proposal too reveals its endemic flaws. I myself ran advocating for fair, independent, and nonpartisan redistricting reform in the 2017 cycle. To date, I am sorry to say that I have yet to see such a proposal. Indeed, a major concern with the proposed amendment is that politicians are involved at all. Just as I didn't trust the Republican caucus of Virginia, the gravest of feats. As with the U.S. Constitution, amending the Virginia Constitution is no small task, and rightfully so. There are several layers to this process because of the importance of the document and the sacred power that it holds. Second, you will also understand my reluctance to trust amending either Constitution when the U.S. Constitution, despite the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, failed to protect my people as full citizens of the United States, and given our challenging history with race in this Commonwealth. And third, and most important to me personally, the issues with this process raised by black members have been systematically ignored. Upon my entry into this legislature, I heard over and over and over again, do not let perfect be the enemy of the good. And that may be fine and well for a piece of legislation which you can come back the following year and change, or in subsequent years and ease if things go wrong or there are unintended consequences. But we can't do that with an amendment. Just as it is incredibly difficult to get something into the Constitution, it is just as hard to get it out. So if you're going to alter the Constitution, the most powerful document in our state, it better be perfect. And this amendment is far from perfect. Even the amendment's original advocates acknowledge that it's flawed. And I fear that this body is barreling toward an imperfect solution for a problem that can be fixed and refined legislatively. So why walk this path in pursuit of a misguided means to an end? Constitutions are supposed to afford protections and enshrine inalienable rights. By altering the Constitution in this way, I fear that it will have a perverse effect on black communities, which, given how this process is played out, comes as no surprise to me. If you'll remember 1 year ago, Chairman Bagby eloquently laid out the reasons why this amendment would do more harm than good for the communities that we represent. He stood on this floor last year and identified problems with the amendment, but it sailed through 85-13. His concern wasn't about the seats that we hold today, but about the potential to diminish voices that come in the future. Today we have more black members since Reconstruction, and I am very proud of that. But this amendment stands to reduce the black voices in the General Assembly, plain and simple. But what's even more tragic is that as we acknowledge the 400th anniversary of blacks arriving in Virginia, we are still in a situation where our views and concerns are ignored and effectively shipped below deck. After I and other black members expressed doubt last year, we were met by white advocates who said, don't worry, we will fix it with legislation to protect your interests. And yet here we are, the protective legislation that we favored has been shelved, and I might add is being driven almost by all white advocates inside and outside this chamber. Moreover, the rejection of these concerns is not just from folks who I disagree with, but also with folks who I often agree with, the so-called allies to the black community. Frankly, I'm pretty tired of seeing a black colleague stand up and express concerns over legislation only to be ignored or cast aside. I cannot fathom how everyone remains unfazed as the chairman of the Legislative Black Caucus expresses doubt on the House floor when he so rarely speaks in this venue. I wonder, are our voices that unimportant when we're still facing these same problems 400 years later? And to be honest, I've had a hard time reconciling the people who share many of my values and ideals and ask me for help in getting votes and ingratiating themselves with communities of color, then get here and ignore us on their way to steamrolling towards their agendas. I say to you, don't just talk about it, be about it. I say to you, don't ask me and others to take you to our churches, our community events, and our donors any longer. This issue is just as personal to us as it is to them. The amendment and the process demonstrates your commitment to black people is nothing more than lip service, and we're watching pretty closely. And the next time you're in a venue that's full of black people, I look forward to hearing your explanation of your vote on this amendment and how you sought to diminish their voice in the political process. We all want fair and nonpartisan independent redistricting reform, but this is far from it. This is a shoddy compromise, and I fear we have let outside groups and advocates obsessed with delivering on promises they made about a redistricting amendment cloud our vision of the next Virginia century and jeopardize black voices in the process. We can do better than settling. We can accomplish so much more together by embracing a process that will not jeopardize black voices in this chamber for the next decade and beyond. Frankly, I think this amendment is nothing more than a half measure aimed at saving the backs of the advocates who got out over their skis. It is essentially putting lipstick on a pig and telling Virginians they're getting a fine piece of swine. I'm not fooled, Chairman Bagby isn't fooled, and our communities will not be fooled either. Madam Speaker, if my words today lose me support within my own party, or in my city or in my region, so be it. But my identity as a black man means more to me than any title that I will ever hold. And my position here is to ensure that as many black voices are at the table as possible and their voices ring for generations to come in the General Assembly. But hear me loud and clear. I would rather see a process driven solely by a diverse set of citizens from across this Commonwealth. I cannot stand here and hold my nose and cast a vote for something that will effectively disenfranchise black voices, and we especially don't need politicians involved in this process because we can only serve to mess things up with our own agendas. A citizen-driven process is still achievable by legislating the redistricting process rather than enshrining this flawed amendment on our books that may take decades to undo. So this time I'm imploring you, let perfection be the enemy of the good. The redistricting power belongs solely with the people. To do anything less would be a disservice to all of our citizens, but especially our black citizens in this Commonwealth. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Richmond City, Delegate McQuinn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate McQuinn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and members of the Assembly, this month, March, the month of March, has been designated as Women's History Month. To all of my female colleagues, I say thank you for your amazing contribution to Virginia and every community that's represented. We help to make the difference. But I also want to talk about, at this time, about the role, as I talk about the role of women in society, I want to particularly focus on African American women. The civil rights activist Angela Davis aptly described the plight of African American women. She said, black women have had to develop a larger vision of our society, perhaps more than any other group. They've had to understand white men, white women, and black women, black men. They've had to understand themselves, but more importantly, she said, when black women win victories, it is a boost for virtually every segment of society. I want to add to her quote by stating that we have had to conjure up the ability to navigate around all of these forces. But I also want to add a disclaimer by saying I and we, hopefully, are aware that it's been difficult for all women in society. But being black and a woman in America has been significantly challenging. But no one knows our pain or plight unless you have walked in our boots. And I use the analogy of boots because we are always in a battle for relevance and respect. We know how those wheels roll because we have had to go along for the ride. Even though we have always been in a posture of being a caretaker, we've had to take care of as mothers and sisters and aunts and grandparents and every other woman in the neighborhood. We have had to take care of everyone. We take care of our children, neighbors' children, the community, family, the church, and yes, to my brothers, African American men, and don't shoot me down. From being forced to caregivers to nursing white children during slavery to serving as the backbone during the civil rights era and sometimes on the front line, Black women have shown their unwavering strength and tenacity and perseverance. You may dispute that premise or even reject it, but we know if we are true to ourselves, our hands are constantly rocking the cradles of society. We've had to operate like an octopus with tentacles everywhere, constantly multitasking in order to give the strongest support to those within our reach. All women have made exceptional strides over the past 100 years. Women have rallied for their rights to vote, rights to work, and right to live independently. But in many of these conversations, however, African American women have been overlooked and undervalued. Repeatedly, we have had to reinvent ourselves over and over and over again to fit into someone else's profile or who they think we are or who they think we should be. But Maya Angelou said these words: "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." So I want to take a moment to speak on the power and the strength of Black women have shown since their forced migration to the United States. Some women have shattered the glass ceiling. Many women have shattered the glass ceilings. But we as Black women have strategically been the architects and engineers who have picked up the fragment of discarded glass and created their own edifices of incredible success. Ida B. Wells was a civil rights advocate, a journalist, an abolitionist, and feminist. After the mob murder of a friend and the friend's associate, Wells did the painstaking work of investigating not only her friend's lynching, but the lynching of other African American people across the South. Wells verified these stories and wrote about them, detailing the atrocities of lynching. And after a mob stormed her Tennessee newspaper office, she remained in New York out of fear for her life. It is individuals like Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Johns, Dorothy Height, and countless others African-American women have laid the groundwork for many types of social justice and opened many doors of opportunity. Modern-day African-American women have continued to attain groundbreaking accomplishment in all areas of life. Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Serena Williams, Stacey Abrams, Mr. Copeland, Mae Jemison, Beyonce, Toni Morrison, and the list goes on and on of political leaders. And so as we reflect on this month, Women's History Month, I want to know women of all races, of all walks of life, have been amazing in trying to make a difference. But please let us also remember the African American women who are rarely thanked for their legendary work. And so today I say to each of you, here to strong women, may we know them, may we raise them, and may we be them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Middlesex, Delegate Hodges.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Hodges, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, earlier this month, I stood here and asked you all to think about environmental justice and to look at the definition of environmental justice as it relates to the benefits and burdens of environmental policy and the equal distribution of those benefits and burdens. I greatly appreciate the nice comments from the gentleman from Roanoke and many others from the other side of the aisle that reached out to me after I spoke on this and to continue these discussions with environmental justice. Now, I want to take a moment to elaborate a little bit more and speak to some of my concerns with regard to groups outside of this body as it relates to environmental justice. I stood here a couple of weeks ago and I talked about solar energy. And I asked you all to think when the Commonwealth allows an urban center to benefit from energy savings, while at the same time it costs our rural localities precious jobs. Now, when we talk about environmental justice and the equal distributions of those benefits and burdens, it's fairly easy to relate this to solar farms. because people come in, they use these big areas of land, and they build energy farms that benefit our urban centers. But today I ask you to look at and think about the same environmental justice from a different perspective. Today I ask you to think about the numerous burdens that have been placed on rural coastal Virginia over the years, and join me to thrive in areas rich in history. In rural coastal Virginia, we've been battling a rising water, flooding water, access to quality drinking water. Now, back in the 1980s, enacted its signature water quality protection legislation, the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act. It was needed, no doubt, to help bring much needed significant improvements to our most important waterways on the East Coast. But over time, 22 laws and regulatory programs went into effect to help prevent overdevelopment and protect water quality in the riparian areas, generally where the tidal wetlands and the uplands converge. But in rural coastal Virginia, our water running into the bay, it's already clean. For the most part, it's already clean. We have proven that time and time again and have the science to back it up. Madam Speaker, our water is clean because we're already green. Now, while intended, these laws and regulatory programs prevent rural coastal Virginians from protecting their land and building more resilient shorelines. To put it into perspective, a waterfront homeowner in rural coastal Virginia has many more restrictions on what they can do in their own yard to protect their own property, to protect their own land, than a homeowner in an urban locality that is already built out in an intensely developed area. This directly impacts the vulnerable communities in our rural coastal region. This impacts their way of life, and it impacts their livelihoods. Now, one of the smallest localities in the Commonwealth, Matthews County, has just over 9,000 people. They have suffered a $65 million loss of land, directly and indirectly, due to flooding. This loss of land value impacts not only property owners, but means less tax revenue is available for critical public services such as police, fire, and schools. This is a huge burden on a locality that has no employers more than 50 more people and has less than 800 jobs in the county, including public education jobs and county jobs. Time and time again, we have presented solutions and proposed solutions to these challenges, to these burdens that rural coastal Virginians face. And time again, Madam Speaker, we're told no. We've looked at solutions to build resilient communities while also protecting water quality. Water quality always comes first. We've examined solutions that unite our urban areas and rural areas, bringing us all together to benefit. And time again, Madam Speaker, we're told no. Madam Speaker, each year I am back here in Richmond presenting a stack of bills that try to solve our watering and flooding problems in the rural coastal region. I cannot thank Delegate Lopez, Delegate Wilt, Chairman Plum for your kind words, your encouragement, and your patience, Mr. Chairman. And I greatly appreciate Delegate Lopez and what he refers to as the Hajapalooza. So thank you, Delegate Lopez. But seriously, Madam Speaker, everyone knows me, knows that every bill I introduce puts water quality first. They know I am passionate about solving these problems, and I'm relentless in fighting for these solutions. They know that each year I am back with what most would see typically as common sense approaches, but once again, Madam Speaker, we are met with a resounding no, because there are groups that are not, because I have never anyone out on this House floor. But during this session, I have witnessed behavior that I've never seen here at the Capitol, and I feel that I must bring it to everyone's attention. And one of the things that I learned early on is, number one, there's no such thing as an easy bill, and you don't get married to your bill. Now, as a bill moves through this body, stakeholders and groups, we work together. We amend the bill until you have peace in the valley. If you don't have peace in the valley, you debate that bill before the committee. You debate it on the floor, and you vote on the policy. It's the Virginia way, Madam Speaker. Well, Madam Speaker, it seems that some groups here in Richmond no longer understand the Virginia way. Many of you are familiar with House Bill 1674, a great bipartisan bill. Brought an innovative approach in creating a provisional surface water withdrawal permit to help preserve the Potomac Aquifer. Delegate Mullen, thank you for your help. Senator Mason co-patroning this bill, and the bill was so unique. Now, the only folks that actually and trying to administration, and one time, not even once, did any of these groups come to see me, these groups ever come to my office to discuss and to address their concerns. It's the Virginia way, Madam Speaker. It's septic systems. Over 600 septic systems just in Gloucester County are affected by sunny day flooding. Flooded on sunny days. It's a public health crisis. I had a piece of legislation that actually came out as a recommendation in working with the health department that could allow the health department to form a work group, and with DEQ to form a work group to discuss the possibility through regulation of adding some dirt in that RPA. The health department said, look, we can help with this public health crisis. There may be a time and a place where we can actually help with this. But the the Friends of the Rappahannock and the Virginia Conservation Network, we found on their website, they were opposed to this bill. Of course, working the Virginia way, I asked them to come see me. And the morning before that subcommittee meeting, we had a deal, Madam Speaker. We struck a deal in my office that addressed their concerns. And, Madam Speaker, they stood before this subcommittee and they opposed the bill. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, you don't do that. You don't do that up here. You don't break a deal. When you break a deal, you break the trust. And you never get that trust back. Each year I strive to bring solutions. Each once told one of these groups, do you want to do something meaningful? You consider donating to any organization whose main goal is to print bumper stickers, raise money, and say no. I love the water and the river as much as anyone. It's in my blood. But what I love most about the rural coastal region is the people, Madam Speaker. The families that live and play together and make it such a special place. The folks that I grew up with, and the folks that I know, and the folks that I love. It is my job to craft policy that protects this special place, to ensure that environmental justice includes the fair distribution of benefits and burdens of environmental policy. Madam Speaker, it's nearly impossible to protect these vulnerable populations when these groups only say no. Break that trust and trample upon this very institution. Madam Speaker, I have never stood here and given a point of personal privilege like this. I am hurt, I feel betrayed, and I am angry. I consider each and every one of you a friend here in this body. We might play politics with bills sometimes, that's okay. But when you shake hands and when you strike a deal, not one of us here in this body would back away from that deal and betray that trust. It doesn't matter if you're fighting for the Second Amendment. It doesn't matter if you're fighting for civil rights. It doesn't matter if you're fighting for the ERA. No matter what you're fighting for, you don't break that trust, because when you do, this very institution crumbles. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Ayala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate Ayala, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning. Body, as we celebrate Women's History Month, I rise in honor of celebrating Women's History Month. The year 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which gave the women the right to vote. And on March 3rd, 1913, the 105th anniversary of the Women's Suffrage Parade in Washington, D.C., where over 8,000 women marched to demand their right to vote. Historic women leaders like Alice Paul, Ida B. Wells, Lucy Burns, marched and demanded change for equality in our country. Because of this, they marched and sparked a sea of change in the fight for women's suffrage and their right to vote. Women have been on the forefront of our nation's progress. We have championed equal pay for equal work, affordable child care, the fight against the undervaluing of women who take on unpaid careers. Women's History Month draws attention to the women who have fought for the rights we have today and concurrently highlights the ongoing struggles for equality. This month was originally meant to bring the world's attention to women, their accomplishments and struggles. But it has become a vessel to celebrate the advancement and positive changes that women have made to contribute to our current advancements. Proof of these progress or advancements are evident here in this body. But there's more work to be done. During the session, our body has continued to fight for ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment and putting gender equality on the forefront of our Constitution. I hope, as we look to finish our session, that we will embody the perseverance and determination that the suffragists showed as we continue our work. And with that, Madam Speaker, the rest will be herstory. But thank you.
The delegate from Hanover, Delegate Fowler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege, an introduction and a motion.
Delegate Fowler, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. You want to help me out there, Tommy? There you go. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, it's a privilege today to recognize and honor not only a hero, but an incredibly selfless person and beloved member of the Richmond community, Mr. Russell Lee Scott. This time I ask the Scott family to, if they will stand, please. Madam Speaker, most of you, in fact, probably most Virginians, have not heard of Russell or of his incredible story while serving in the Army Air Corps in World War II. But Madam Speaker, if you have ever spent any time at the Virginia War Memorial, you most definitely would have known Russell, because in many ways, Russell Scott was the Virginia War Memorial. Russell Scott was born in Richmond on April 26, 1920. And one of his goals was to have a celebration next month on his 100th birthday. But the Lord called Russell home about 6 months ahead of his schedule. So, Madam Speaker, I'd like to think that the House is celebrating Russell's centennial today. Russell Scott was beginning a career in the automotive industry when the start of World War II called Russell to duty in the Army Air Corps, where he trained as a tail gunner on a B-25 medium bomber. Russell Scott flew his first mission off the island of Corsica on May 23, 1944, and 2 days later, while on his second mission over Foggia, Italy, Russell's B-25, nicknamed Wabbitwax, was shot down, and is where Russell's story took what could only be described as a miraculous turn. Parachuting from the plane, Russell broke his back upon impact, an injury that which he would never fully recover. Once captured by German troops, he was held as a prisoner of war until May 1st, 1945. Madam Speaker, the Virginia War Memorial has many artifacts on display that tell a story. But my absolute favorite is the B-25 replica of the Wabbitwax, flying nose down with Russell Scott perched patiently on the rear stabilizer that hangs from the ceiling of the main lobby in honor of Russell's steadfast service to the Virginia War Memorial. When you visit the War Memorial, you can't miss it, and when you see it, you will always remember a great Virginian and a great American, Mr. Russell Lee Scott. Upon his return to the U.S., Russell received the Purple Heart as well as medals for valor and for courage. He also resumed civilian life, where he enjoyed a productive career in the automotive industry. Madam Speaker, members of the House, Russell Scott was committed to the Virginia War Memorial. For nearly 20 years, he served as a docent to visitors every Wednesday. sharing his wartime experiences with countless students and visitors. In addition, Russell also volunteered for over 30 years at the Hunter Holmes McGuire Virginia Medical Center in Richmond. Many of you have seen the several media profiles about Russell Scott that have been produced over the years in response to his moving story and inspiring life, including WCVE TV's Virginia Currents program, WTVR TV Heroes Among Us program, WRIC TV's Reliving History program, and several other features in the Richmond Times-Dispatch and other publications. Madam Speaker, in his spare time, Russell was a lifelong Mason, a 35-year member of the American Legion Post 244, a member of the Denny Landrum chapter of the American Prisoners of War, and a faithful member of Lakeside Baptist Church. Russell was preceded in death by his two wives, Madeline and Evelyn. However, is deeply remembered and greatly missed by his stepchildren, Steve, Cindy, and Karen, and their families, and especially his stepson-in-law and buddy, Roddy Roddy, who is here today to accept this memorial resolution on behalf of the family. So, Madam Speaker, members of the House, please join me in thanking the Scott family for sharing Russell with us, because we're all better for having known him, and Virginia has been bettered because of his service. So, Madam Speaker, I also want to recognize some of the staff from the Virginia War Memorial and Department of Veterans Services for their attendance today. I see current Director Clay Mountcastle and the former longtime Director John Hatfield. And I think I can see Jeb Hockman and Carrie Alford up there. So y'all please rise. So again, and finally, Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Delegate Fowler, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, that we do so in the honor and of the memory of Russell Lee Scott.
Delegate Fowler moves that when the House adjourn today, it adjourn in the honor and memory of Russell Scott. All those in support of this motion shall rise. The motion is agreed to.
And finally, Mr. Speaker, we're going to ask the House to give the family a warm House welcome.
To our visitors and to the Scott family, thank you for sharing Russell with all of us and with the Commonwealth of Virginia. Such an impressive, amazing individual, such a rich history. Thank you so much. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of you, and I agree with Delegate Fowler. I can hear the emotion in his voice, but I feel as if we're celebrating his centennial just a month early, and hopefully honoring him is the best way we can. But our thoughts and prayers are with you. Thank you. The House will be at ease. Arrived, and the House is ready to proceed with the execution of HJR 388. Will the clerk please announce the committee to count?
The Speaker has appointed Delegates Lindsay, Simon, and Kilgore, the committee on the part of the House of Delegates, to count and report the vote of each House in each case.
The House will be at ease. Order. The joint order under House Joint Resolution 388 will be resumed. The delegate from Norfolk, Delegate Lindsay.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to report that the committee to count the votes of each House met and the nominees fulfilled the criteria for election. I move that the reading of the report be waived.
The question is, shall the reading of the report be waived? Recorded vote. The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 96, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 96, nays 0, abstentions 0. The reading of the report is waived. Those judges previously nominated in H.R. 137, with the exception of Onsley Ware in the 23rd Judicial Circuit, having received a majority of the votes cast by the members elected to each House, are declared duly elected as judges for the circuit courts of the appropriate judicial circuits for a term of 8 years, commencing on the dates specified. Those judges previously nominated in H.R. 138, having received a majority of the votes cast by members elected to each House, are declared duly elected as judges of the general district courts of the appropriate judicial districts for terms of 6 years, commencing on the date specified. Those judges previously nominated in H.R. 139, having received a majority of the votes cast by the members elected to either House, are declared duly elected as judges of the juvenile and domestic relations district courts of the appropriate judicial districts for terms of 6 years, commencing on the date specified. This concludes the joint order. The clerk will call the calendar.
House calendar for March 3rd. Senate bills on third reading uncontested calendar. Page 2, Senate Bill 213, a bill to require the Department of Medical Assistance Services to study the current personal maintenance allowance for waiver services and the impact of that amount on the ability of service recipients to engage in compensated employment. Reported from Rules.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Senate Bill 213 directs DMAS to be able to study personal maintenance allowance and the impact that it has on employment. DMAS has said that they're going to be able to achieve this and that the findings will be reported to the General Assembly as well as the Joint Commission on Health Care by November of this year. I'd ask that the bill pass.
Senate Bill 368, a bill to amend and reenact Section 2.2, 4303.1 of the Code of Virginia relating to the Virginia Public Procurement Act, architectural and professional engineering term contracts, limitations on project fees, localities. Reported from General Laws.
The delegate from Richmond City, Delegate Carr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 385 decreases the population threshold from 78,000 to 50,000 for a locality to qualify for the exceptions from the 150,000 single project fee limit for architectural and professional engineering term contracts and the $750,000 annual aggregate total limit for all such projects. I hope it will be the pleasure of the House to pass the bill.
Senate Bill 629, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 56594.3 relating to electric utility regulation, shared solar programs. Reported from Labor and Commerce with substitute.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill from Senator Serval on SB 629 defines and changes the regulations for shared solar programs, particularly for residential customers. I'd ask that the bill pass.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to.
Page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill 731 has gone by for the day. Senate Bill 957, a bill to repeal Section 3354 of the Code of Virginia and the second enactment of Chapter 562 of the Acts of Assembly of 2014 relating to Commission on Civic Education, sunset and funding, reported from rules with substitute.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's a House substitute, which I will now move.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to. Delegate
Thank you,
Mullen.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this repeals the sunset provision for the Commission on Civic Education. The House substitute in particular corrects what I'm sure was a drafting error over in the Senate, making representation equal between the two bodies. We've made sure that the House remains strong. I'd ask that the bill pass.
Page 4, Senate Bill 994 has moved to the regular calendar. Senate Bill 1051, a bill to amend and reenact Section 42.178 of the Code of Virginia and other sections of the Code relating to Virginia Public Records Act, availability of public records, reported from general laws with substitute.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Bolivar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move the committee substitute.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to. Delegate Bolivar.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, Senate Bill 1051 as amended just clarifies if an organization legally obtained images of public records that were created prior to 1901, that those images can be displayed or published by an individual or entity without having to request additional permission or to pay a fee. The backstory on this is that the Genealogical Society of Utah was authorized by Virginia in 1949 to copy records held by our clerks. However, that came with some terms and conditions to it, and they were just concerned about putting this information online. And so what this does, it just makes it clear that they have the permission to do that. Importantly, this makes sure that we don't upset the system by which we can get information from our circuit court clerks. And so with that, I would move its passage.
Delegate from Powhatan, Delegate Ware.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Will the delegate yield?
I yield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I asked the gentleman, I got a contact by one of my clerks who was concerned about the potential for a real cost with this. Do you know if that's been addressed, that concern was addressed?
Delegate Bolivar.
So Madam Speaker, I'd answer the gentleman yes. We made sure to take out any reference with respect to clerks and the process by which clerks can release information. And so now this just has to do with public records that have already been obtained. And so this is something we worked out with the Clerks Association, and to my understanding, there is peace in the valley.
I thank the
Delegate
gentleman.
Ware. Shall the bills pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 0. The bills pass.
Senate bills on third reading, regular calendar, page 4, Senate Bill 270, a bill to amend and reenact sections 53.1-234 and 54.1-3307 of the Code of Virginia relating to practice of pharmacy, compounding, regulation by Board of Pharmacy, reported from Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had a floor amendment prepared for this bill that corrected an error.
The House will be at ease. The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Simon.
Madam Speaker, may this bill go by temporarily?
All those in favor of SB 270 going by temporarily shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed, SB 270 goes by temporarily.
Page 5 of the calendar, Senate Bill 851 has gone by for the day. Senate Bill 1044, a bill directing the Board of Funeral Directors and Embalmers to promulgate regulations establishing licensure requirements for funeral directors and embalmers, reported from Health, Welfare, and Institutions.
The delegate from Roanoke City, Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senate Bill 1044 directs the department to promulgate regulations currently in the code There are 3 different classes that exist, but 2 of them don't have regulations that are promulgated, so it would be the pleasure of the body to pass Senate Bill 1044.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 76, nays 18, abstentions 0.
Ayes 76, nays 18, abstention 0. The bill passes.
Page 6, Senate Bill 181, a bill to amend and reenact Section 4.100 of the Code of Virginia relating to alcoholic beverage control, commercial lifestyle center, definition, reported from general laws.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Krizik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, SB 181 reduces from 25 to 10 the minimum number of acres upon which a commercial development must sit in order to qualify for licensure as a commercial lifestyle center. I hope it will be the pleasure of the body to pass the bill.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 91, nays 4, abstentions 0.
Ayes 91, nays 4, abstentions 0. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 385, a bill to amend and reenact Section 54.1401 of the Code of Virginia and adding a section numbered 56-257.2:1 relating to the regulation of professional engineers, scope of exception, reported from general laws.
Delegate from Montgomery, Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, currently right now, if you are an engineer for a public service corporation, you do not have to be licensed. You are exempt from licensure. In 2018, there was a natural gas explosion in Massachusetts that led to an NTSB report that was issued last year that said that states should change that and instead require licensure for professional engineers on these pipeline projects. And so Senate Bill 385 simply removes the exemption for those engineers who work for a utility company to make sure that they are licensed and regulated. It would be up to the SEC to promulgate such regulations. I hope that the body would pass the bill.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 74, nays 22, abstentions 0.
Ayes 74, nays 22, abstentions 0. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 395, a bill to amend and reenact Section 4.1222 of the Code of Virginia relating to alcoholic beverage control, residency requirement for licensure, reported from general laws.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Krizik.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill eliminates the provision that allows the Board of Directors of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority to refuse to grant a retail license to any person who has not resided in the Commonwealth for at least 1 year immediately preceding the application. I move that we pass the bill.
Shall pass. The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 90, nays 6, abstentions 0.
Ayes 90, nays 6, abstention 0. The bill passes.
Page 7, Senate Bill 441, a bill to amend and reenact Section 4.1207 of the Code of Virginia relating to alcoholic beverage control, winery license privileges, reported from general laws with substitute.
The delegate from Fairfax County, Delegate Krizik.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill allows winery licensees like the Woodlawn Press Winery in my district to sell at retail the brands of wine that the winery manufactures on the licensed premises, as described in the winery license, for on-premises consumption or in closed containers for off-premises consumption. I move that we pass the bill.
Shall the bill pass? No. Actually, the clerk shall destroy the roll. I don't believe we did the committee substitute. Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Committee substitute is agreed to. Shall SB 441 pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 92, nays 4, abstentions 0.
Ayes 92, nays 4, abstentions 0. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 632, a bill to amend and reenact Sections 56 to 65.1 and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to public utilities, energy storage capacity in the Commonwealth. Reported from Labor and Commerce.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Madam Speaker, may this bill go by temporarily?
All those in favor of SB 632 going by temporarily shall say aye. Those opposed, SB 632 goes by temporarily.
Senate Bill 712, a bill to amend and reenact Sections 2.2, 520, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to the Virginia Human Rights Act, discrimination on the basis of pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, reasonable accommodation for the known limitations of persons related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. Reported from General Laws with substitute.
Delegate from Prince William, Delegate Carol Foy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The substitute removes the requirement for the Office of the Attorney General to create and disseminate educational materials related to pregnancy accommodations to businesses. I move that we accept the committee substitute.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to. Delegate Carol Foy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that we pass the bill.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 61, nays 35, abstentions 0.
Ayes 61, nays 35, abstentions 0. The bill passes.
Page 8, Senate Bill 860, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 56-585.1:11 relating to electric utilities, development of offshore wind generation facilities. Reported from Labor and Commerce.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Simon.
Madam Speaker, can this bill go by temporarily?
All those in favor of SB 860 going by temporarily shall say aye. Those opposed, SB 860 goes by temporarily.
Senate Bill 888, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding in Title 30 a chapter numbered 60 consisting of sections numbered 3376 through 3382 relating to Commission on School Construction and Modernization established. Reported from Rules with amendments.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would move the committee amendments.
Shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, committee amendments are agreed to. Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I believe the clerk perfectly described this bill, and I would ask that it pass.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 87, nays 9, abstentions 0.
Ayes 87, nays 9, abstentions 0. The bill passes.
Page 9, Senate Bill 905, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding to Article 4 of Chapter 12 of Title 55.1 a section numbered 55.1, 1244.1 relating to property, landlord, and tenant, tenant's remedy by repair. Reported from General Laws with substitute.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Bulova.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move the committee substitute.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to. Delegate Bulova.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, Senate Bill 905 deals with situations where a landlord is in material noncompliance with a rental agreement, and that noncompliance, if it isn't corrected, could constitute a fire hazard or a serious threat to life or safety. And so this includes things like rodent infestations, lack of heat, lack of hot and cold running water, lack of sewage disposal, and similar things. And what this bill does is it allows the renter to take reasonable steps to remedy those conditions, but only after the tenant has provided to the landlord 14 days notice and that landlord has failed to take steps to correct the situation. In addition, the renter must use a licensed contractor, and the amount of the remedy cannot exceed 2 months' worth of rent. Madam Speaker, I would move we pass the bill.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 55, nays 41, abstentions 0.
Ayes 55, nays 41, abstention 0. The bill passes.
Page 9, Senate Bill 988. A bill to amend and reenact Section 58.1, 3660 of the Code of Virginia, and to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 56.585.1:11 relating to electric utilities, electric school bus projects, reported from Labor and Commerce with substitute.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Corey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 988 is similar to my bill HB 75, which establishes a pilot program for electric school buses. It passed Labor and Commerce 15-7 with a House substitute. I hope it is the pleasure of the body to accept the House substitute.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to. Delegate Corey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Excuse me. Forgive me for this procedural question, but at this time, I believe I should ask to have the bill passed.
Yes, shall the bill pass?
Good, yay. Please, pass the bill.
Madam Chair.
The House will be at ease. Delegate Poindexter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if Delegate Corey would rise and yield for a question.
Will the delegate yield?
Certainly, Madam Speaker, I yield.
The delegate yields. Delegate Poindexter.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Delegate Corey. I'm kind of curious how much, if I understand this bill right now, electricity customers of Dominion and not Appalachian under this pilot program, people with the meter would be paying the money to purchase these electric school buses. Am I correct on that?
Delegate Corey.
Madam Speaker, I would tell the delegate, no, this bill requests the SCC to make that decision. However, it does suggest that the ratepayers could absorb the cost.
Delegate Poindexter.
Further question, please.
Delegate Poindexter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would the delegate tell us how much an electric bus costs compared to a conventional school bus on the market today?
Delegate Corey.
Madam Speaker, I would say that an electric school bus costs anywhere from electric school buses in the United States that can supply them quickly. It is a new and growing market.
Delegate Poindexter.
Final question, Madam Chair.
Will the delegate yield?
Yes, I yield.
Yes.
Delegate yields.
I would ask the delegate and state first, though, that none of our other school buses are required to have mandatory seat belts for each seat in the bus. From my understanding, under this program, these special buses would be required to have seat belts. Would you give us the logic on that, please?
Madam Speaker,
Delegate Corey.
I would say that it's not necessarily logical. However, this program was designed by Dominion Energy, and they insist that the buses that they help support financially have seat belts. However, as I said earlier, the whole question and shape of the project is up to the SCC.
Delegate Poindexter. The delegate from Norfolk, Delegate Lindsay. Delegate Lindsay.
Will Delegate Poindexter rise for a question?
Will the delegate yield?
I rise and yield.
Delegate yields. Delegate Lindsay.
Madam Speaker, I'd say to the delegate, and I don't know if this is senility or disrespect or neither, but I've noticed that since the beginning of the session, he continues to address the speaker as chair. And while I could understand some of us being slow on the uptake,
Madam Speaker.
Delegate from Shenandoah.
Madam
Delegate
Speaker,
Gilbert.
has the gentleman run afoul of the rules whereby members are not to insult one another? I would suggest he has.
And I would say,
and I would
Madam
ask the
Speaker,
Speaker to act in response.
The House will be at ease. The House will come to order. I just want to take this moment to remind everybody of Rule 57. No member will in debate use any language or gesture calculated to wound, offend, or insult another member. I'm sure that's not the intention. Just remind everybody for when they're speaking to keep that in mind. It's in the rules of the House of Delegates. We'll continue with SB 988. I think we moved the committee substitute. I think there's no one else left to speak on this bill. If not, shall the bill pass? On the board, electronic voting board, SB 988. The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 35, nays 57, abstentions 0.
Ayes 35, nays 57, abstentions 0. The bill fails.
Madam Speaker.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Simon.
Never mind, Madam Speaker. Sorry.
Senate Bill 998, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 56-585.1:11 relating to electric utilities, development of offshore wind generation facilities. Reported from Labor and Commerce. And there is a floor substitute.
The delegate from Roanoke City, Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am presenting the floor substitute. So the bill that we have before us, Senate Bill 998, has to do with the offshore wind provisions that yesterday we talked about are in 5 different bills, and many of us would like to see the language around those 5 bills married as we move forward. What we want to do, Madam Speaker, with the attention of the floor substitute that I'm bringing up today is to be able to advance some wind language that makes a lot of us feel more comfortable. I know that we're not there yet, but at least this allows the conversation to continue. So what you have before you, Madam Speaker, is that this floor substitute before you does 4 specific things. First, at the beginning...
The delegate, why don't we have the clerk report the...
Yes,
Will the clerk please report the floor amendment?
Floor amendment in the nature of a substitute to Senate Bill number 998 is available online and on your desks for some of you.
Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So what we want to do is do 2 major things, and we make 4 changes. Increase competition and do our best to add some ratepayer protection language. So right at the beginning of Section B, we say that the utility can own or operate, but also there's the option for the construction and operation by a third party. On down, Madam Speaker, where it talks about on lines 28 and 29, the comparison that the SCC would use to compare what's reasonable and prudent is 1.4 times instead of 1.6 times, and it's against a utility scale solar generating facility as opposed to a combustion turbine technology. The issue with combustion turbine technology, Madam Speaker, is that this is very inefficient, and it's a high-cost resource to compare as we move forward. And these facilities, because of their high cost, are really only used during peak demand times. So I think it's more appropriate to not say that the offshore wind is compared directly to utility-scale solar. We're saying that it's 1.4 times. So we're allowing there to be an increase, but this is much more reasonable for ratepayers. And it's not that the project, Madam Speaker, has to be below that amount. It is saying that for the SCC to essentially, for it to be rubber stamped, to be reasonable and prudent, that it has to be below that amount. So the project can cost more than that. It's just that the SCC would have to determine at that point, is it reasonable and prudent? And finally, Madam Speaker, down for competition's sake, down on 49 and 50, we say that if there are customers who are currently purchasing power through renewable sources, that those customers do not have to pay twice. So we're allowing them to be part of the exemptions, as this is a non-bypassable charge. So we want to reward those folks who are already making those investments. I hope it will be the pleasure of the House to adopt the floor substitute.
The delegate from Norfolk, Delegate Lindsay.
Madam Speaker, will the gentleman from Roanoke rise for a question?
Will the delegate yield?
Madam Speaker, I yield.
The delegate yields. Delegate Lindsay.
And Madam Speaker, I'd say to the gentleman, or I'd inquire of the gentleman, if he has conferred with the patron of this bill before making the amendments that he's now offered to the body.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Delegate Rasool.
I would answer the gentleman by I have conferred with the patron of this bill as well as the almost identical bill that we will also consider. They are not pleased with these amendments, to say the least, so I'm not trying to convey that they are pleased. This is what I believe will be optimal language in showing that this is what it should look like, and what will I assume what will happen, Madam Speaker, is that the Senate will reject this, but this can be the basis of finding a compromise that actually, number one, makes sure that there's good competition, and number two, making sure we can do our best to protect ratepayers.
I thank
Delegate
the gentleman.
Lindsay.
Thank you.
The delegate from Chesapeake, Delegate Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on this matter as well as the other bill, the Mason bill, after speaking with both patrons directly, both of them seem to feel that it'll be a good idea to pass these bills by for the day. And so I would so move.
All those in favor of passing SB 998 by for the day shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. SB 998 goes by for the day.
Page 10, Senate Bill 1029, a bill to amend and reenact Section 4.1209 of the Code of Virginia relating to alcoholic beverage control, gourmet shop license, distiller participation in tastings, reported from general laws.
The delegate from Fairfax County, Delegate Krizik.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have one last booze bill. This one is simple, allows distillers to participate in tastings held by gourmet shop licensees. I move we pass the bill.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 91, nays 3, abstentions 1.
Ayes 91, nays 3, abstentions 1. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 1048, a bill to direct the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to investigate and negotiate public assistance and operation of the Virginia Horse Center Foundation, reported from Rules.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Virginia Horse Center Foundation currently does not receive public funds, and this instructs DACS to be able to investigate whether or not that is something available in the future. We would ask that you vote for this very horsey bill.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 82, nays 11, abstentions 1.
Ayes 82, nays 11, abstentions 1. The bill passes.
Returning to page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill 994 was moved from the uncontested calendar. A bill to amend and reenact sections 23.1, 2500, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to Virginia Military Institute, reported from Rules, and there is a floor amendment.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Helmer.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Speaking to the bill, SB 994 provides that VMI shall be grounded in a strict code of honor and academic excellence, shall uphold a strict military structure. It says that all cadets shall participate in one of the ROTC programs and defines the role of the Adjutant General. It removes some of the requirements that the board get prior written consent of the governor regarding gifts and grants, and it states that the board shall decide the terms upon which cadets shall be admitted. Madam Speaker, there is a floor amendment. I ask the clerk to please report the amendment.
The clerk please report the floor amendment.
Floor amendment to Senate Bill 994, offered by Delegate Helmer, line 22, engrossed after capital D, insert, "The Institute shall include as part of its policy, code, rules, or set of standards governing sexual violence a provision for immunity from disciplinary action based on personal consumption of drugs or alcohol where such disclosure is made in conjunction faith report of an act of sexual violence."
SB 994 already says that VMI shall be grounded in a strict code of honor and high academics. This amendment does not impact the ability to prosecute misconduct under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which, under the bill, all cadets who will be members of ROTC will be subject. We should all be proud of VMI, the many graduates it has provided, including members of this body, and its role as a premier commissioning source of the U.S. military. But, as you all may know, reports of sexual assault in the military rose nearly 40% between 2016 and 2018. We are confronting a crisis, and it is likely that the crisis is one of the causes of an accompanying crisis in female veteran suicide. Alongside a strict code of honor and high academics, it's now time for VMI to have a strict and binding policy on sexual violence reporting to root out sexual predation. At a similar institution, West Point, I watched a woman in my class punished severely for reporting a sexual assault in which she had been a victim but had been drinking. Her perpetrator was never punished, and it frankly has been the cause of much pain in her life, including leaving the academy. In Virginia, this should never happen. By adopting this amendment, we can ensure that VMI leads the way as a commissioning source that fosters reporting of sexual violence and make a small step toward eradicating this epidemic from the U.S. military. I hope it's the will of the body to pass the amendment.
Madam Speaker,
Yes, the delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
will the delegate yield for a question?
Will the delegate yield?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
The delegate yields. Delegate Gilbert.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask the gentleman, I know the clerk read the amendment one time, and I know that he described a problem. Could the delegate explain to the body how his amendment addresses that problem?
Delegate Helmer.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I'd answer the delegate that what this amendment does. I'd answer the delegate that what this amendment does is it provides immunity for a cadet who actually provides that you'll have a provision in the code, the student code, that says if a cadet reports an act of sexual violence and there was minor drinking or drug use involved, that cadet would then not be subject to discipline under the student code for that act.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you. All those in favor of the floor amendment shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the floor amendment is agreed to. Delegate Helmer.
Madam Speaker, I move passage of the bill.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 93, nays 2, abstentions 0.
Ayes 93, nays 2, abstention 0. The bill passes.
Returning to page 4 of the calendars, Senate Bill 270 went by temporarily. A bill to amend and reenact sections 53.1, 234, and 54.1, 3307 of the Code of Virginia relating to practice of pharmacy, compounding, regulation by Board of Pharmacy. Reported from Health, Welfare, and Institutions, and there are floor amendments.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the House. I would like to speak quickly to the floor amendments.
Will the clerk please report the floor amendment?
Floor amendments to Senate Bill 270, offered by Delegate Delaney. Number 1, line 84, engrossed after of, strike pharmacies and. Amendment 2, line 84, engrossed after that, strike perform sterile. Amendment 3, at the beginning of line 85, engrossed, strike compounding in Virginia or ship sterile compounded drugs into Virginia, insert, have entered into a contract with the Department of Corrections for the compounding of drugs necessary to carry out an execution by lethal injection pursuant to Section 53.1, 234. Amendment 4, at the beginning of line 86, engrossed, strike pharmacies or insert such.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The purpose of these amendments is to limit the reporting requirements to those outsourcing facilities that are contracted with the Department of Corrections to compound lethal injection drugs, as opposed to all outsourcing facilities. I have worked with Senator Bell, the patron, on this bill, and he is in full agreement with these amendments. So I urge the House to support the amendments and the bill.
Shall the floor amendments be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the floor amendments are agreed to. Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 53, nays 45, abstentions 0.
Ayes 53, nays 45, abstentions 0. The bill passes.
Returning to page 7 of the calendar, Senate Bill 632 went by temporarily, a bill to amend and reenact sections 56, 265.1, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to public utilities, energy storage capacity in the Commonwealth. Reported from Labor and Commerce.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, as the clerk indicated, this bill has to do with stimulating the storage industry here in Virginia, energy storage industry here in Virginia. It provides that it's the objective of the General Assembly that 2,700 megawatts of aggregate energy storage capacity be placed into service on or before July 1, 2030. It provides that energy storage facilities with an aggregate capacity of 2,700 megawatts are in the public interest, and that by 2030, the construction by a public utility of one or more energy storage facilities located in the Commonwealth having an aggregate that 2,700 megawatts, or a purchase by a public utility of energy storage facilities described in that same clause. It requires that at least 65% of the energy storage capacity placed into service by 2020 be located in the Commonwealth, is found in the public interest. The bill further goes on to require that the State Corporation Commission, in its annual report, assess the aggregate annual new construction and purchase of energy storage facilities. I move the bill's passage.
Shall the bill pass? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 52, nays 44, abstentions 0.
Ayes 52, nays 44, abstentions 0. The bill passes.
Returning to page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill 860 has gone by temporarily.
Madam Speaker.
I'm sorry, went by temporarily.
The delegate from Roanoke City, Delegate Rasool.
Madam Speaker, can Senate Bill 860 go by for the day?
All those in favor of SB 860 going by for the day shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed, 860 goes by for the day.
House bills with Senate amendments.
Sorry, over here.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Speaker. Before we move on to the next session, I rise with a motion.
Delegate Sullivan, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, a couple days ago, we took by for the day SB 851. This is Senator McClellan's version of the Clean Economy Act. At this point, a lot of people know and understand that we are working on ongoing negotiations relating to this bill. Because of the current posture and timing, I now ask that we reconsider my motion of a couple days ago to take SB 851 by for the day. Go with me. It's okay.
Delegate Sullivan moves that having voted on the prevailing side, by which we went by for the day on 851.
Sorry.
Yes, Delegate from Scott, Delegate Kilgore.
Is this on the I can't. Parliamentary inquiry? Oh, page 5. Okay. Okay, I thank you.
Page 5, I believe.
Not doing it.
Okay. Delegate Sullivan moves that having voted on the prevailing side, by which we went by for the day on HB 851 on page 5, reconsider that motion.
Madam Speaker.
Delegate from
Speaking to
Roanoke
the motion.
City, Delegate Rasul.
Madam Speaker, I hope that we will not reconsider passing this by for the day. Madam Speaker, we have in good faith presented, as we know, there are 5 bills right now where we are trying to work through some of the language. And
Madam Speaker, can we go at ease for a minute?
House will be at ease.
So that's coming up. Mike. Sorry.
The House will come to order. Okay, we are back on SB 851, I believe on page 5. Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and with apologies to the body for the kerfuffle. There is nothing nefarious going on here. I'm simply trying to get the bill back into a posture where we can continue to work on it. So I'll just tell everyone what we're going to be doing, and I believe this is agreeable to everyone, at least on this side of the aisle, and I would hope on the other side as well. We're going to reconsider my motion to take that bill by for the day. Folks will remember there was some debate on the floor, after which I moved to take it by for the day. After that, I will ask that we reconsider the adoption of the substitute, and then I will move, assuming that works, I will then move to take the bill by for the day, keeping it in the body keeping it in this body so that we can continue to talk about it. So those are the three motions I'm going to make, Madam Speaker.
Okay, Delegate Sullivan. Delegate Sullivan moves, having voted on the prevailing side, that the House reconsider the vote that we went by for the day. All those in support of reconsidering shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. The bill is back before the body.
Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Delegate Sullivan.
Having voted on the prevailing side, I ask that we reconsider the motion by which we adopted the substitute.
All those in favor of Delegate Sullivan's motion to reconsider for the day, the vote by which we adopted the substitute shall say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the bill is back before us.
Madam Speaker,
Delegate
I have a
Sullivan,
motion.
one last motion.
Madam Speaker, I have a motion. I move that we pass the bill by.
All those in favor of Delegate Sullivan's motion to pass the bill by
for the
day shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The bill is passed by for the day.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, my colleagues.
Thank you. Okay, the delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise for a motion.
Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, I move that, having been on the prevailing side whereby we failed to pass SB 998, I would move that we reconsider that vote.
Page 9, I believe.
Yes, Madam Speaker, page 9.
Delegate Mullen moves, having voted on the prevailing side of HB 988 on page 9, where we failed to adopt the bill, asks to reconsider that at this time. All those in favor of this motion to reconsider shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. SB 988 shall be reconsidered. Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, I would ask that that bill go by for the day.
All those in favor of SB 998 going by for the day shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed? SB 998 will go by for the day. Will the clerk please continue with the calendar?
House bills with Senate amendments. Page 10, House Bill 443. A bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 10.1, 1402.04 relating to closure of certain coal combustion residuals impoundments, Giles and Russell counties. There are Senate amendments.
Delegate from Prince William, Delegate Carol Foy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Senate amendment clarifies which Southwest Virginia facilities are required to complete post-closure care of its coal ash ponds and which are required to remove all the coal ash at the facility and place in a permitted landfill. This bill passed out of the House 99-0, and I ask that we accept the substitute. I'm sorry, the amendment.
Shall the Senate amendment be adopted? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 96, nays 1, abstentions 0.
Ayes 96, nays 1, abstention 0. The Senate amendment is adopted.
Page 11, House Bill 827, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding in Chapter 39 of Title 2.2 a section numbered 2.23904 relating to Virginia Human Rights Act, discrimination on the basis of pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions, reasonable accommodation for the known limitations of persons related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. There is a Senate substitute with amendment.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Carol Foy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The substitute strikes the provision that states that the court may award to the defendant reasonable attorney fees and costs if the defendant prevails in an action brought under this subsection. This bill prohibits discrimination against pregnant women. I move that we accept the substitute.
Shall the Senate substitute with amendment be adopted? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 59, nays 38, abstentions 0.
Ayes 59, nays 38, abstentions 0. The Senate substitute with amendment is adopted.
Page 12, House Bill 916, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 22.1-208.02 relating to culturally relevant and inclusive education practices advisory committee established. There is a Senate amendment.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members body. This bill is about developing a curriculum, a proper curriculum at the Department of Education for the teaching of the Holocaust and other cultural issues. And the Senate added the word after anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and I move that we accept the Senate amendment and pass the bill.
Shall the Senate amendment be adopted? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 76, nays 21, abstentions 0.
Ayes 76, nays 21, abstentions 0. The Senate amendment is adopted.
House Bill 1093, a bill to amend and reenact sections 53.1, 116.1:02 and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to prisoners, special identification cards. There is a Senate substitute.
The delegate from Arlington, Delegate
Thank
Hope.
you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, members of the body, I'm going to ask you to accept the Senate amendments. It makes it very similar, conforms it with the Delegate Aird's bill, House Bill 1467, which we passed yesterday, 99-0. This conforms in a way to add Social Security cards and birth certificates as things that jails and prisons will help prisoners upon their release. Hope it would pleasure the body to pass the Senate amendment.
Shall the Senate substitute be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 98, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 98, nays 0, abstentions 0. Senate substitute is adopted.
House Bill 1426, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section numbered 22.179.7:1 relating to school boards, school meals, availability to students. There are Senate amendments.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Rome.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are 3 amendments for this bill that basically says that every school has to participate in the National School Breakfast and School Lunch Program. Just about all of them do. One of them adds an enactment clause that the provisions of the bill should not take place until July 1st, 2021 to give those few remaining schools time to actually get into compliance. The second part on this is that we amended the words third party to basically make it non-governmental third party when talking about who can actually go about collecting a debt for a school meal. And the third part is just a technical amendment between lines 19 and 20 just to basically describe what type of debt. All of these were adopted in subcommittee in the House, but due to a clerical error, they didn't make it out of the House. So we took care of that in the Senate, and I move adoption of the bill.
Shall the Senate amendments be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 79, nays 17, abstentions 0.
Ayes 79, nays 17, abstentions 0. The Senate amendments are adopted.
Page 13, House Bill 1460, a bill to amend and reenact sections 54.1, 3803, 3408.3, and other section of the Code of Virginia relating to cannabidiol oil and THCA oil, telemedicine, non-Virginia residents. There are Senate amendments.
The delegate from Washington, Delegate O'Quinn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment that came over from the Senate simply says that the Board of Pharmacy will allow the dispensing of CBD or THCA oil to a person located in Virginia, but the Board of Pharmacy will still have to approve all of the people that enter this program. So I move that we accept the Senate amendment.
Shall the Senate amendment be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 0. The Senate amendment is adopted.
House Bill 1506, a bill to amend and reenact sections 38.2, 3408, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to pharmacists initiating treatment with and dispensing and administering of controlled substances. There is a Senate substitute.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members of the House of Delegates. My bill was a compromise that brought all of the parties together, meaning it had the support from Virginia's doctors, but the Senate substitute laid on is not an agreed-to bill. And so I ask you today to reject the Senate substitute.
Shall the Senate substitute be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 0, nays 98, abstentions 0.
Ayes 0, nays 98, abstentions 0. The Senate substitute is rejected.
Page 14, House Bill 1526, a bill to amend and reenact sections 10.1, 603.24, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to the regulation of electric utilities, ending carbon dioxide emissions, renewable portfolio standards for electric utilities and suppliers, energy efficiency programs and standards, incremental annual energy storage deployment targets, net energy metering, third-party power purchase agreements, and the manufacturing and commercial competitiveness retention credit. There is a Senate substitute with amendments.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Madam Speaker, could you take this by temporarily?
All those in favor of HB 1526 by temporarily shall say aye. Those opposed, HB 1526 goes by temporarily.
Page 15, House Bill 1641, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding an Article 2.1 of Chapter 14 of Title 10.1, a section numbered 10.1, 1413.3, relating to coal ash ponds, drinking water well, resident notification. There is a Senate substitute.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Ayala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the substitute.
Delegate Ayala, you have the floor.
The substitute conforms the list of coal ash facilities that was in last year's coal ash bill, SB 1355. I would urge the body to accept this friendly Senate amendment.
Shall the Senate substitute be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 73, nays 23, abstentions 0.
Ayes 73, nays 23, abstentions 0. The Senate substitute is adopted.
House Bill 1642, a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding an Article 2.1 of Chapter 14 of Title 10.1, a section number 10.1, 1413.3, relating to coal ash ponds, well monitoring program, drinking water well testing. There is a Senate substitute.
The delegate from Prince William, Delegate Ayala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the Senate substitute.
Delegate Ayala, you have the floor.
The substitute conforms the list of constituents to that of the EPA's maximum primary and secondary containment levels. Additionally, it conforms the list of coal ash facilities to last year's SB 1355 and changes the potable drinking water timeline from 1 to 7 days and allows for utilities the option to hook up households to the county or city water. Again, I would urge the body to accept these friendly Senate amendments.
Shall the Senate substitute be adopted? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 77, nays 21, abstentions 0.
Ayes 77, nays 21, abstentions 0. The Senate substitute is adopted.
Page 16, House Bill 1653, a bill to require the Department of Education to collect data from school boards regarding their ability to fill school counselor positions. There is a Senate amendment.
The delegate from Rockingham, Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the body, House Bill 1653 is intended to have the Department of Education determine where the counselors are going to come from. As you're well aware, we're improving the ratio of counselors to students, but that question arose, and so the Senate amendment simply extends the timeline that the department has to come up with their numbers and sources where those counselors are going to be. I move that we accept the Senate amendment.
Shall the Senate amendment be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 96, nays 2, abstentions 0.
Ayes 98, nays 2, abstentions 0. The Senate substitute is adopted. Oh, I'm sorry. Ayes 96, nays 2, abstentions 0. The Senate amendment is adopted.
House Bill 1670, a bill to amend and reenact sections 54.1, 3408.3, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to Board of Pharmacy, pharmaceutical processors, cannabidiol oil, industrial hemp. There are Senate amendments.
Delegate from Washington, Delegate O'Quinn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendments that came over for House Bill 1670 will clarify that the oil formulation that includes oil from industrial hemp, that the requirement still applies that it must contain at least 15% CBD but no more than 5% of THC. It also inserts the ability of the Board of Pharmacy to promulgate regulations on how the oil will be acquired and used for record keeping as it relates to recalls or investigations. I move that we accept the Senate amendments.
Shall the Senate amendment be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 97, nays 0, abstentions 0. The Senate amendment is adopted.
Returning to page 14 of the calendar, House Bill 1526 went by temporarily, and I have read the title. There is a Senate substitute with amendments.
Shall the Senate substitute with amendments be adopted? Oh,
Madam Speaker.
Sorry. Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Madam Speaker, this is the House version of the Clean Economy Act, which has already taken up too much of this body's time this morning. The Senate amendments make some minor changes. The substitute is unacceptable. So to send this into conference, I would ask that we reject the substitute.
The delegate from Scott, Delegate Kilgore.
Madam Speaker, members of the House, the Senate amendment added language that would extend the life of the coal-fired power plant, the clean coal-fired power plant at Virginia City. So I would ask that we accept the Senate amendments.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Madam Speaker, the substitute, addressing the bill, Madam Speaker. The bill is in negotiation. There are some discussions about what to do with the power plant in Wise County. So I would urge the body to reject the substitute so the bill can go to conference and we can continue to talk about that issue.
Shall the Senate substitute the delegate from Tazewell, Delegate Moorfield?
Madam Speaker, speaking to the substitute.
Delegate Moorfield, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, members of the House, I was very fortunate enough to grow up in a family that saw a lot of failure and experienced a lot of success, from coal mining to farming to manufacturing to telecommunications. And at 24 years old, just right out of college, a year before I ran for this office, I wanted to learn about renewable energy. Our family knew a lot about the coal industry, but I wanted to learn about renewable energy. And I traveled around the country to learn about solar and wind energy. And the year before I ran for this office, I was part of a team that helped design what would be one of the largest wind turbine manufacturing facilities in the world. And we pulled together a lot of smart people, some very willing investors from around the country to construct this facility. Madam Speaker, members of the House, that facility is not here today because whether we have state-supported demand for wind turbines and their components, the reality is that many of these components are not feasibly manufactured here in the United States, and they probably never will be. We're buying these components from overseas. So, Madam Speaker, I've listened to this debate over the past several weeks, and I fully support the concerns that the delegate from Roanoke has. We can debate all day long about the merits of climate change, and we may not convince one or another, but my primary concern is the impact that this legislation will have on ratepayers, specifically low-income ratepayers. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm also concerned about the viability and the future of the economy in Southwest Virginia. 2 years ago, I was sitting at an appropriations budget briefing, and we've all attended those meetings. We were going around the conference table, and I asked the question, if a locality cannot afford to pay their utility bills, if a school system can't afford to pay their utility bills because they've lost population, they've lost tax revenue, who is responsible for paying that? And everyone looked around the table like they've never had that question asked before. And one of the staff members said the Commonwealth would be responsible for paying that if the locality could not pay for that. Now, just a few weeks ago, we heard from a member of the Senate, and he said, I am tired of footing the bill for rural Virginia, more or less. And so, Madam Speaker, members of the House, if those members are tired of footing the bill, let's look specifically at what this legislation could do to some of the most vulnerable localities in Virginia. This coal-fired power plant means as much as $6 million per year in local tax revenue. That's tax revenue, but let's consider the regional impact, the number of jobs that are created, the suppliers, the truck drivers. This could be in the tens of millions of dollars, the impact that this has. And so, going back on my comment about the concern for ratepayers, we have got to look out for the most vulnerable citizens, but we also have to look out for the most vulnerable localities, and that's Southwest Virginia and Southside Virginia and our urban friends in the city of Petersburg. And we talk about our exports, but we don't talk about our largest export in Virginia, and that's coal. In 2018, we exported roughly $1.1 billion of coal, but we don't talk about that. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm not here to debate what is or what isn't climate change, but I'm trying to look out for the future and the better interest of Southwest Virginia. I encourage you to support this amendment. Let's not take the legs out from underneath us. And so, Madam Speaker, let me use this scenario. The comment was made a few days ago that there is protections for low-income ratepayers. There is not protection for low-income ratepayers. If you support regulated monopolies and you're not looking out for the poor, you're not looking out for the elderly, then I encourage you to support this legislation, to not support this amendment. But if you're looking out for our most vulnerable citizens, then I encourage you to please accept this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Roanoke City, Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the bill.
Delegate Rasool, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope that we will support the gentleman from Fairfax motion to reject the Senate substitute. But I'm not going to talk policy for a moment. I'm going to talk about what the gentleman had just spoken to, which was in a lot of our policy, Madam Speaker, I don't know if we have the right degree of empathy with the way we approach it sometimes. And a lot of us are struggling. It's no secret that on a lot of this policy, I'm pretty left-leaning. But in all of the energy policy that I've pushed for personally, it has called for developing a comprehensive plan where we engage people around the Commonwealth in developing that plan, because that's important. And we heard some of the frustrations from the gentleman from Middlesex this morning. We've heard some of the frustrations from Delegate Moorfield. I hope, not just for this bill, Madam Speaker, but as we develop a lot of these policies, that we are mindful and do think about the impact to these individual localities, because there's actually, this isn't about left and right. I think if we really listen and we really think through this, we're going to find a lot of common ground about frustration and needing to listen to a lot of different people. So I hope that we'll reject this, keep the conversation going, Madam Speaker, but I hope that we will be mindful about how these policies impact our individual communities. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the motion.
Delegate Sullivan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I listened to the delegate's comments with great interest, and I simply want to assure him and the body that, frankly, this is the body's opportunity, the General Assembly's opportunity to set Virginia's policy, not the executive, but the General Assembly's opportunity to set policy relating to precisely the issues that Delegate Moorfield was talking about. And by the way, for the very first time, the enactment clause toward the end of this legislation says that, quote, "It shall be the policy of the Commonwealth." This is us determining this. We are saying it is the policy of the Commonwealth that the SCC, DMME, and the Virginia Council on Environmental Justice, in development of energy programs, that's all energy programs, job training programs, and placement of renewable energy, shall consider whether and how those facilities and programs benefit local workers, low-income geographic areas, and historically economically disadvantaged communities, as those terms are defined herein, veterans, and individuals in the Virginia coalfield region that are located near previously and presently permitted fossil fuel facilities or coal mines. This bill has within it precisely what we're all worried about, making sure that as we make this transition to a clean economy, that those who have relied on the coal economy or the fossil fuel economy are accounted for. Nevertheless, as a matter of procedure and posture, it's my request that the body reject the Senate substitute so that we can get to conference and bring you a bill that does precisely what Delegate Moorfield's interested in doing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Shall the Senate substitute with amendments be adopted? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 8, nays 88, abstentions 0.
Ayes 8, nays 88, abstention 0. The Senate substitute with amendment is rejected.
Resolutions on the uncontested calendar. Page 17, Senate Joint Resolution 30, requesting the Department of Aviation to study the coordination of stakeholders within the aviation industry for economic and workforce development. Report. Reported from Rules.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The clerk has perfectly described this resolution, and I would ask that it pass.
Shall the resolution be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 92, nays 2, abstentions 0.
Ayes 92, nays 2, abstentions 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Resolutions on regular calendar. Page 17, Senate Joint Resolution 35, establishing a joint subcommittee to study barrier crimes and criminal history reports records check. Report. Reported from Rules with amendments.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it has been over a generation since we in this body and our government have studied what should and should not be a barrier crime to further employment in certain secure positions. This would direct that there be a joint legislative subcommittee to study that. I would ask that it pass.
Shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the committee amendments are agreed to. Shall the resolution be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 76, nays 20, abstentions 0.
Ayes 76, nays 20, abstentions 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Page 18, Senate Joint Resolution 42, requesting the Department of Environmental Quality to establish a waste diversion and recycling task force to study ways to increase waste diversion and recycling. Report. Reported from Rules with substitute.
The delegate from the delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The patron, Senator Hanger, asked me to report this today, that his study requests the Department of Environmental Quality establish a waste diversion and recycling task force, study ways to increase waste diversion and recycling. The resolution requests that the task force work with stakeholders to do a lot of good things, and that the Litter Control and Recycling Fund, under which the law is used to fund local litter programs, recycling grants to localities, and statewide and regional litter prevention and recycling education program grants are the subject of this work group. And I ask the body to approve Senator Hanger's SJ 42.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the committee substitute is agreed to. Shall the resolution be agreed to? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 80, nays 16, abstentions 0.
Ayes 80, nays 16, abstentions 0. The resolution is adopted. Is agreed to.
Senate Joint Resolution 47, requesting the Judicial Council of Virginia to study the jurisdiction and organization of the Court of Appeals of Virginia. Report. Reported from Rules.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we do not have a full-fledged Court of Appeals here in Virginia that hears all civil and criminal cases by right. This directs that the Office of the Executive Secretary and the Judiciary explore that issue. I'd ask that the resolution be passed.
Shall the resolution be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 62, nays 35, abstentions 0.
Ayes 62, nays 35, abstentions 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Senate Joint Resolution 49, requesting the Department of Health Professions to study the need for additional micro-level, meso-level, and macro-level social workers and increased compensation of such social workers in the Commonwealth. Reported from Rules.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have a dearth of social workers here in the Commonwealth, primarily because they are not paid enough. So this would direct that the Department of Health Professions put together a work group to be able to explore increased compensation for social workers in public and private duties. I'd ask the resolution pass.
Shall the resolution be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 73, nays 23, abstentions 0.
Ayes 73, nays 23, abstentions 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Page 19, Senate Joint Resolution 89, confirming appointments by the Senate Committee on Rules to the Virginia Commonwealth University Health System Authority Board of Directors. Reported from Rules.
Delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the clerk perfectly described this resolution. I would ask that it pass.
Shall the resolution be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 96, nays 0, abstentions 0.
Ayes 96, nays 0, abstentions 0. The resolution is agreed to.
Memorial resolutions. Memorial resolutions to be considered in block with no exceptions are found on pages 19 through 24 of the printed calendar.
Does any member desire to remove a resolution from the block? Hearing none, all those in favor, Delegate from Newport News, Delegate Price.
Yes, Madam Speaker, may House Joint Resolution 478 on page 23 go by for the day?
All those in favor of HJR 478 on page 23 go by for the day shall say aye. Those opposed, HJR 478 goes by for the day. Is HJR 478 a memorial resolution? Okay. Does any other member desire to remove a resolution from the block at this time? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting in block the memorial resolutions laid on the Speaker's table, found on pages 19 to 24 of the calendar, with the exception of HJR 476 on page 23, shall rise. The resolutions are agreed to.
Commending resolutions. The resolutions to be adopted in block with the exception of HJR 335, 377, 378, 441, 459, and House Resolution 151 are listed on pages 24 through 39 of the calendar.
Does any member desire to remove an additional resolution from the block? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the commending resolution laid on the Speaker's table, with the exception of HJR 335, 377, 378, 441, 459, and House Resolution 151 found on pages 24 through 39, will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the resolutions are agreed to.
Conference reports received. Page 49 of the calendar, House Bill 795, a bill to amend and reenact sections 38.2, 3431, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to health insurance association health plans.
Delegate from Montgomery, Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the conference report for House Bill 795 makes technical amendments to the engrossed bill as it left the House to further define that those eligible individuals who could partake in a health plan that's offered by a trade association to include not only those who are independent contractors, like many who are realtors with their employment agreements, but also those who are single-member sole proprietors in single-member LLCs. I hope it be the pleasure of the body to accept the conference report.
Shall the conference report be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 93, nays 3, abstentions 0.
Ayes 93, nays 3, abstention 0. The conference report is agreed to.
Page 60, House Bill 1726, a bill to amend and reenact sections 33.2, 2605, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to transit funding in the Hampton Roads region, reported from Finance with substitute.
The delegate from actually 720.
Speaker,
Delegate from Roanoke City, Delegate
could that
Rasool.
go by temporarily?
All those in favor of HB 1726 going by temporarily shall say aye. Those opposed, HB 1726 goes by temporarily.
Page 63 of the calendar, Senate Bill 235, a bill to amend and reenact sections 38.2, 3431, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to health insurance association health plans, reported from Labor and Commerce with substitute.
The delegate from Montgomery, Delegate Hurst.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the conference report for Senate Bill 235 is identical to the conference report for House Bill 795, which we just adopted, so I would urge the body to adopt the conference report.
Shall the conference report be agreed to? The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 93, nays 3, abstentions 0.
Ayes 93, nays 3, abstentions 0. The conference report is agreed to.
Page 72, Senate Bill 1038, a bill to amend and reenact sections 33.2, 2605, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to transit funding in the Hampton Roads region.
The delegate from Virginia Beach, Delegate Askew.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The conference report for SB 1038 just makes a number of technical corrections and clarifications. Specifies that funds cannot be used to expand light rail beyond the boundaries of Norfolk. Also adds a kill switch to ensure that new revenues are used as intended. I hope the body accepts this report.
Shall the conference report be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 57, nays 40, abstentions 0.
Ayes 57, nays 40, abstentions 0. The conference report is agreed to. The House will be at ease.
Turning to page 60 of the calendar, House Bill 1726 went by temporarily. A bill to amend and reenact sections 33.2, 2605, and other sections of the Code of Virginia relating to transit funding in the Hampton Roads region.
The delegate from Virginia Beach, Delegate Askew.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The council report for HB 1726 is the exact same as SB 1038. I hope it's the will of the body to accept the conference report.
Shall the conference report be agreed to? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 57, nays 35, abstentions 0.
Ayes 57, nays 35, abstention 0. The conference report is agreed to.
Madam Speaker, that completes the calendar.
Per House Rule 51, the House is returned to the morning hour. Does the clerk have any additional announcements or communications?
One announcement, Madam Speaker, a reminder that all requests for drafts, redrafts, and corrections for single House commending and memorial resolutions to Legislative Services by 5 p.m. today. That's any requests for drafts, redrafts, or corrections for single House commending and memorial resolutions. Conference reports can be taken up at any time, so don't wait till the last minute. And the Speaker has appointed conference appointees to several bills. House Bill 2, Plum, Hope, Ferris. House Bill 2, Plum, Hope, Ferris. House Bill 600, Hope, Bourne, Coiner. House Bill 600, Hope, Bourne, Coiner. House Bill 799, Askew, Lopez, Rush. House Bill 799, Askew, Lopez, Rush. House Bill 1519, Delegates McQuinn, Bagby, Fowler. House Bill 1519, Delegates McQuinn, Bagby, Fowler. Senate Bill 286, Delegates Mullen, Scott, Collins. Senate Bill 286, Delegates Mullen, Scott, and Collins. Senate Bill 407, Delegates Krizek, Lopez, Cox. Senate Bill 407, Delegates Krizek, Lopez, and Cox. Senate Bill 480, Delegates Van Valkenburg, Goditis, Marshall. Senate Bill 480, Delegates Van Valkenburg, Goditis, and Marshall. Senate Bill 575, Delegates Hurst, Adams of Richmond City, and Hodges. Senate Bill 575, Delegates Hurst, Adams of Richmond City, and Hodges. Senate Bill 588, Delegates Watts, Hudson, and Kilgore. Senate Bill 588, Delegates Watts, Hudson, and Kilgore. Senate Bill 612, Delegates Ward, Bagby, and Ferris. Senate Bill 612, Delegates Ward, Bagby, and Ferris. Senate Bill 700, Delegates Bourne, Heretic, and Adams of Pennsylvania. Senate Bill 700, Delegates Bourne, Heretic, and Adams of Pennsylvania. Senate Bill 768, Delegates Aird, Hope, and Austin. Senate Bill 768, Delegates Aird, Hope, and Austin. Senate Bill 818, Delegates Hope, Mullen, and Campbell of Smith. Senate Bill 818, Delegates Hope, Mullen, and Campbell of Smith. Senate Joint Resolution 67, Delegates Heretic, Herring, and Collins. Senate Joint Resolution 67, Delegates Heretic, Herring, and Collins. Madam Speaker, there are some meeting announcements for this afternoon, Tuesday, March 3rd. Caucus, the Career and Technical Education Caucus meets at 4:30 p.m. in the 200B subcommittee room. The Virginia Environmental and Renewable Energy Caucus has been canceled. Meetings for Wednesday, March 4th. Speakers Interfaith Devotional meets at 7 a.m., 6th floor Speakers Conference Room. The Joint Women's Healthcare Caucus meets 8 a.m., 300B Subcommittee Room. The Women's Roundtable League of Women Voters meets 8:30 a.m., SunTrust Building, 4th floor Tidewater Room. Press Conference for Fund Our Schools, House Briefing Room, 8:30 a.m. Courts of Justice Committee meets 9 a.m., House Committee Room. The Democratic Caucus meets 10 a.m., House Room 1. The Republican Caucus meets 10 a.m., House Room 2. That completes my announcements.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I can just, first of all, there's no Courts of Justice meeting. We're done with our business. So, Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, adjourn to reconvene Wednesday, March 4th at 11 a.m. And if I could speak to that motion?
Delegate Herring, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just remind members that we have a little over 50 pages of conference reports due. So it's an encouragement of the Speaker that we get to work on our conference reports, me included, so that we can make sure that we get our business done. That's my motion, Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring, moves that when the House adjourned today, it adjourn to reconvene tomorrow, Wednesday, March 4th at 11 a.m. As many as favor that motion shall say aye. As many as opposed, the motion is agreed to. Delegate Herring.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
The delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Herring, moves that the House do now adjourn. As many as favor that motion will say aye. Those opposed, the motion is agreed to. The House stands adjourned until Wednesday, March 4th at 11 a.m.